Hello, and welcome to AI Curious. My name is Jeff Wilser. I'm a journalist, I'm a human, and I'm curious about AI. Now, there are a lot of interesting and colorful people in the AI space, but you'd be hard-pressed to find someone more interesting than Mario Klingemann, a German artist who has been experimenting with AI and machine learning and neural networks for years, way before ChatGPT entered our lives. And when I say years, I really mean decades. Mario first heard about machine learning in the 1980s. He later did early internet graphics, building websites as his day job, and then experimenting with computer-made art on the side. He would build programs that would then build programs to create art. Again, years and years before DALL-E or Midjourney made this simple. His work has appeared in places you've heard of: the MoMA, the Met, the British Library. He was a Google Arts and Culture resident. To quote Anchorman, he's kind of a big deal. And then, when new machine learning tools and models became available in the last couple of years, Mario took it up a notch. He invented something called Botto, Botto, which was his attempt to answer a bold question. Can an AI machine become an artist? Note, the question here is not, can AI create art? That's a more modest question. Mario wanted to know, could Botto actually be an artist? I mean, we're kind of getting into, can Pinocchio be a real boy territory? So thanks to Mario's ingenious programming, Botto is an autonomous machine that's constantly cranking out work. And then there's a community of human beings, people, who review its work, vote on the best stuff, and effectively gives Botto feedback. Technically, this community is called a DAO, DAO, an acronym that crypto folks will recognize as Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And then here's the wild part: Botto will automatically sell this art as an NFT. These NFTs are sometimes listed at Christie's, which is the holy grail for many human artists. Now, these NFTs typically sell for thousands of dollars. By one report, Botto has generated over $3 million in its first 2 years. Not bad for a robot. Now, if you want more, I previously interviewed Mario in an article for CoinDesk discussing more of the kind of Web3 crypto part of this. There's Google, CoinDesk, my name, Mario's name, and you'll find it. But for now, I had a blast speaking with Mario about Botto, why he's drawn to AI, and then the big question: can AI truly be creative? Please enjoy my conversation with Mario Klingemann, one of the true pioneers in both arts and artificial intelligence. Mario, welcome to the pod.
Good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So Mario, walk us through what were some of the creative expressions and possibilities that machine learning unlocked for you?
When you say what AI unlocked for me, I think the biggest takeaway, or the most profound change AI did to me was change my way of thinking about things or everything, in the sense that everything is a feature vector and everything is in latent space somewhere, not only in the AI models, but in a way, that's the way I think about everything now.
Can you elaborate?
Well, that you can take any type of information, be it and kind of embed it into get back a multidimensional coordinate within a certain multidimensional space. And if you have many different objects and you put them all in the space, relationships start developing between them. So you can measure distances, and you can identify clusters, and you can interpolate between them or extrapolate. So it becomes it is a real space in which you can which you can explore and which you can navigate through, and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thinking that you do not think in, well, what do I call it, like hard categories anymore, but pretty much everything is is fluid and overlapping,
Mm-hmm.
and everything has a little part of everything else in it, but of course some things have more of it than others. And that
Mm-hmm.
way, when you start thinking mathematically about anything, be it art or be it kind of, yeah, photos,
Mm-hmm.
sounds, texts, and you start kind of thinking, how can I work with this material like you're working with clay, or like, yeah, so you can
Mm.
shape it, you can try to extract certain things. So, and yeah, AI is this mixture between a microscope and a telescope, and
Mm.
at the same time it's an instrument that you can play, right? So it's really, and you can find very different ways of playing it. So it is kind of this universal tool which kind of, you can stick different interfaces to it and explore it in different ways, and of course you have, and all data becomes one, right? And I mean, initially not. So initially all these models were separated, in here is an image model, and here's something that can generate text, and here we have this music thing, and but it was very clear that at some point all of this would converge together, and that's where things would get really interesting, that
Mm.
you can transform one thing into another. I think that's kind of what art is about, that it's always a form of transformation. Or so you put something in, and you, like, usually into your head, and then you get something out either through your mouth or through the work of your hands. But in the end, there is something going on in your head which shapes and transforms the data, and combines it with what data is already in your head. And in the same way, I see it works with AI. And of course, the art is then identifying the right tools for the job, the right models, identifying their
Mm-hmm.
strengths and weaknesses, seeing how you can maybe take a model that was trained for a very different purpose and use it the wrong way, but it gives you something interesting, that
Mm.
yeah, so this kind of hacker spirit. So it's this
Mm.
universal beautiful tool that allows you to do a lot of things, and it kind of, the ideas never stop. And yeah, so I guess that's why I'm still so yeah, enthusiastic about it. And
I love that. That was a beautiful thank you for that. Talk a bit about Botto, what Botto is, what it's doing, and how you, along with a larger community,
Mhm.
created it, and how it's now, as we speak, if I understand correctly, during our recording session, Botto is busily creating art
Oh yeah,
right now. So,
it's on it right now. Yeah. Okay. So
yes.
Botto is an autonomous, decentralized artist, or quasi, rather, kind of my answer to the question if we can create an artist with AI, with everything that is kind of implied with the term artist, because
Mm,
being an artist is many things. One of them is creating art, but the other thing is also being an artist and having the biography of an artist. And being, of course,
mm,
the most important part is kind of, everybody can kind of claim they're an artist, but kind
mhm.
of the hard work is to make people believe that you are one. Being an
Hmm.
artist is pretty
And making
much a,
yourself believe, also making yourself believe you're one, also,
well, I
right?
mean,
Isn't that half?
ideally, once you call yourself an artist, you already believe that you are, but it's not necessary that other people believe that too. They just say, oh, you
Okay.
are just kind of a hacker, computer freak, kind of a hobbyist who paints kind of watercolors on the weekends. I mean, and of course,
Hmm.
I'm talking about, like, because in English there's this thing about, there there are a lot of artists that say, like, there can be artists that make, I don't know, commercial art, right? That's also an artist.
Yep.
But of
Yep.
course, I'm talking
Yep.
about, let's say, fine artist,
Right. I
somebody
gotcha.
who
Yeah.
has the chance to end up in one of the temples of culture, while museums,
Sure.
and being written into art history, right? And I'm talking
Yes.
about that
Yes.
type of artist. And what does it take to become that? And I mean, of course, that's something of my own thing, right? Like
Sure.
my own, like, as you know, like it took me a while to get there. But then, of course, is my next question: can a machine also achieve that?
What year was this?
Okay, so the first time I came up with the Botto idea was actually, well, was around the time when I created this sketchmaker.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in the end, that's kind of that is also kind of always the dream of everybody who's doing generative art. Kind of like, okay, now I built this machine and it will keep on making fantastic art, and I never have to work again a day of my life.
So this is the 06, 07 ish time frame,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
I
as I
mean,
recall,
that's
you were
kind of like,
saying,
it wasn't called Botto then, but I even have some slides yet from a talk I gave at that time, which was kind of
wow.
going exactly about that. Like, also, it was actually having a slide which says why a machine can never be an artist. And in that list was, well, first of all, because it can't go to any art openings and mingle with potential collectors, and
Not yet.
it doesn't have any interesting biography or scandals happening, or kind of all these very human elements that are extremely important. And of course, well, but things have changed now. I mean, especially
Yeah.
life moving on more and more to kind of happening
Digitally.
online. And of
Yep.
course, most importantly, blockchain and crypto making
Mm.
kind of selling art that is purely digital kind of
Hmm.
possible at all.
Through
Yes,
NFTs,
through
right? You mean just to
NFTs,
clarify?
because of course you could create, like, how would you have sold digital art like in 2006? I mean,
Right.
it would
Right.
have like, it could not really be automated, right? You would have to have either some, well, I don't know, some gallery behind, or I mean, there was also not really a market. I mean, there was a very, very
Right.
small market for it. So at this point, it was just not feasible for me to pursue this really, but it was something that stuck with
Hmm.
me. And then, of course, with the whole development in AI and the kind of and blockchain coming, it felt the time was right. And one thing that is very important in Botto is, of course, you could write kind of a generative algorithm which produces pretty pictures infinitely,
Hmm.
but it
Hmm.
would be stuck within a certain aesthetic unless you
Yes.
go in and change the code. And
Yeah.
it is pretty much, I would say, impossible to escape a certain kind of aesthetical space of an algorithm unless you make really kind of fundamental changes to it, which require a
Mm.
lot of conscious thinking. And
Hmm.
again, like, it would not be like a human artist who's constantly evolving and learning and
It'd be like an artist who
adapting
is
to the
like, it'd be like
world.
a artist who is not learning at all, who's just
Yeah,
doing the same
yeah.
type of genre, never leaving his or her pastels
I
and
mean,
kind of, yeah.
it can work. I
So,
mean, that's kind of what
right,
style
right.
is usually, that people just have
Sure.
the endurance to stick to something, and those that do not starve eventually get recognized for their style. But yeah,
Okay.
but
I like
again,
that.
it needs
So,
kind of this, like, a human artist is constantly evolving, and
okay.
a machine artist in the classical, like an algorithm, typically only changes if a human changes it. And so one of
Okay.
the core ideas of Botto is that kind of there are as little human kind of creative interventions kind of done as necessary. So
Hmm.
I would never kind of write a very particular type of algorithm which produces a certain aesthetic, because that would be my
Hmm.
work. So,
Hmm.
and
It'd be cheating.
yeah, that would be cheating. I would say it's cheating.
Yeah.
So, and that's
Yeah.
why kind of that's where those big models come in now, those which are kind of trained on everything and which have this almost infinite latent space of aesthetic possibilities, and
Hmm.
which kind of doesn't like if you were kind of generating, I mean, they do often tend to fall into certain aesthetic kind of uh,
Just for the listeners, for some
mhm.
grounding here in context,
Ah,
let's kind of walk through the basics of. 'Cause I think these are important theories that you're describing, but I want to provide the basic context of what Botto is
mhm.
exactly
Yeah,
and how how it iterates, how it's like cranking out art constantly, and then once a week, it's revealing kind of it's curated images, and then the community has a role to play. So if you can share
yeah.
kind of the basics of what Botto is.
Botto makes a selection every week of 350 what we call fragments from everything it has generated so far.
How many total images is Botto
So
creating each
until
week,
now,
roughly?
I think the last time I looked, it's about 2 million fragments or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
And no one's I think you mentioned to me in a prior conversation, no one's seen you haven't even seen
No,
most of
I mean,
these,
who
right?
has
Like
the
no one's
time?
so for right for all we know, Botto could be sitting on this trove of incredible images that no one has ever and will ever see.
Well, I mean,
And
theoretically, I
Botto
mean, the
only
thing is, at some point, it becomes kind of impossible, right? I mean, you can,
sure.
but yeah, in a way, the idea is to use now the human community, the Botto DAO, to help
Yep.
in finding, identifying what is good within that 2 million
Hmm.
and growing. I think daily it grows by 1,000 or 2,000 fragments. I think now it
Hmm.
generates about 20,000 fragments every week. And uh,
Hmm.
and the
Oh,
community
so sorry.
does
So there's
that.
2 million total. So there's 2 million cumulative since
Yes, yeah,
Botto
yeah.
started.
So since
Okay,
like in
got
the
it.
over the 2 years it is in existence, I think the last time I looked it was 2 million because I had to fix something in the code because at some point kind of the feature vectors that it generates got so big that it ran out of memory. So because yeah,
Wow.
the one model alone, I think it was Stable Diffusion 1.5 is very very fast. So some of the models are faster than others, and
Hmm.
so in a way it kind of killed itself. So I had to change. So this is kind of where
Poor Botto.
yeah
Oh no. Poor.
where I had to jump in and adjust the code so it's able to deal with more than 1 million images in an array.
Okay.
So
And just I want to get to, for the listener to kind of follow along. I want to get to the punchline here of how it works, and let me know if I have this
mhm,
wrong. That each week, so Botto's cranking out like 20,000 or however many is images that most people will never see.
mhm,
Botto then on its own, and first it started by prompting on its own, so
mhm,
it's self prompting,
mhm,
thanks to what you built originally. Each week is creating 20,000 images. Some might be um, dark and scary and weird. Some might be beautiful, classic landscape, waterfall things, whatever, a mix of styles. And then each week it selects 350 that it will then unveil. You've created a community, the Botto DAO, that then looks at these 350 and then votes on which one that we think it should, one or two, you'll correct me later, which one it should sell as an NFT. And then Botto takes all on its own, it's all through smart contracts, all automated. Botto takes of the one winning image the community selected, will then sell that as an NFT on a marketplace. And these NFTs have been sold for very large sums of money and they have been recognized by the mainstream art worlds. You've had Botto's creations showcased and exhibited in classic art galleries and receive recognition and awards for this. And as we speak, Botto is continuing to do its thing, is churning out more art. And ultimately, after all that, it is what you created to do all those many years ago. You have created a automated artist that is creating its own art with some assistance from the community, kind of giving it a little feedback. This is good. This one we don't like as much. But with those kind of course corrections, it's now creating art and is recognized as an artist by and is given the imprimatur of being an artist by the kind of most august gatekeepers in the artistic industry. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, there's always more room to grow, right? I mean, it's still
Oh, you're
not in the
being modest. Come
MoMA,
on.
and
You're
no, I mean, so it's working its way up, and it has probably gotten to places where a lot of human artists have not gotten yet. So that's
by a lot, you mean
yeah,
99.999%.
yeah. But then there's also the other thing because then. Uh, that's the unfair thing about art. You can never kind of rest on your laurels. Kind of when you
Mhm.
kind of just stop, kind of, or just say, okay, I've reached this far, you will just fall back. So you have, and that's the whole thing. You have to keep on growing and keeping people interested and, well, evolve your biography. So that's the problem. And that's kind of now, all again, coming to the question. So, okay, Botto has gotten far. It has made enough money so it can sustain it's like it
Mhm.
can keep the servers running and
It's no longer a starving
no,
artist.
it's not
Botto is
even a
no longer
starving.
living
No,
hand to
the
mouth.
best thing is
No.
it's not even not a starving artist. It pays other people. It pays humans, right? Because there is this is the other thing. So there is a team of people who, of course, have to kind of do community management,
Sure.
talk. I mean. Collector relationships, legal stuff, and all these things were kind of where the machine cannot do it yet. And of course, that's the other thing. Like how many of these things can also be done now with the large language models that we're getting now? Kind of like,
Mm.
are there
Mhm.
certain elements now that can be given to into the responsibility of the AI to make certain decisions, to write articles, to give interviews, and like all these other things that
Hmm.
an artist has to do? And so it never stops because then it would just be kind of an automat, but or a
So
machine.
can Botto be a guest? Can Botto be a guest on the podcast on AI Curious sometime in the future?
Oh, there's actually an issue that I mean, in the end, it's also now all out of my decision, right? So whilst I am the guardian of Botto,
Yeah.
but I'm the guardian of the AI. Uh, all decisions are made democratically by the DAO,
Yeah.
and but there's one thing about for me, Botto is kind of like a, well, it's an invisible entity, right? You do not know.
Hmm.
I mean, it would be ridiculous, but like, how does Botto look like, and also what kind of
Hmm.
voice does Botto have? Should Botto have a voice?
Hmm.
And because,
Male or female,
well, and that's
old,
exactly the
young, right?
problem,
There's
which is why I'm
right,
very, very
right.
hesitant to give Botto a voice. And
Hmm.
I don't know, it might sound a bit oh, how you call that, pretentious, but in a way, Botto has to work like a religion, where
Hmm.
kind of, because in the end, it's about belief. And there you have it, right? You do not have kind of, well, take whatever god or deity. They usually do
Hmm.
not have a voice, and they do not have, like, I mean, some
Hmm.
of them have depictions, but the
It's
more
almost better to let
successful ones usually don't. And that's, I
and
find
you
that
almost
interesting.
allow each person to kind of
Yep.
uh, envision what they
Yeah.
want this deity to be. I think it's smart.
So in that
Let's talk
sense,
about
like, just to
yeah
bring this thought to an end,
yeah
maybe Botto will have a voice, but it would be clear that it might be more like a borrowed voice, or might be something which changes
yeah.
or is in. And the problem with these things is, it's like when you read a book and then you see the movie. When you read the book, you have a lot of kind of pictures in your head, and you kind of envision a character a certain way. Once you turn it
Hmm.
into a movie, uh, kind of, you nail down
Yeah.
things and you limit possibilities, and some people will hate
Sure.
it. And so that's why, or also it might be very embarrassing at some point, right? You, I don't know, you have early it's like it, nowadays it might look like the state of the art, but then you look back 5 years later and you see, my goodness, this looked kind of so choppy and so horrible and
Right.
pixelated.
Right.
And there are all these aesthetic, it's kind of an aesthetic decision to say, at the moment, maybe Botto only communicates via writing and there is no picture. And I also do not really see that it makes sense that there is kind of a, maybe at
Hmm.
some point the AI gets to the point where it can decide itself how it wants to look. I mean, Of course, we all know the movie Her, right?
Right.
And there are a lot of elements in that movie which are very, very, like, a lot of foresight and like
I
how.
agree. I
And
rewatched it
so
recently. It
yeah.
holds up. Now that we kind of have a clear understanding of what you created, I'd love to kind of get into some of the more what does it all mean type questions that I think we've been no, I think we've been kind of talking around, and you've eloquently described some of the tricky issues at play here. But one question I'm curious about is the idea of creation, and can AI be creative? And I think what I've heard so is casually talking to friends, listeners of his podcast, I think the conventional wisdom out there to many is, well, AI is really great at automating. AI is really good at streamlining. It can churn through code and all that stuff, but it's not creative. And even if it looks creative, it's just slapping together things that seem it's just, and I can see from your I love I wish people could view your face right now. I could see your reaction to this. I'm just,
No, no,
this is
no.
not my opinion. This is I'm building a straw man here, I guess. But I think it's fair to say that is probably the prevailing conventional wisdom, that AI is good at maybe bolting together. I scraped this off the internet. I saw into Reddit format this thing. I saw from some novel that thing. I saw from this essay in the New Yorker that thing, and I'm merging these three things together. And it might look creative, but it's really not. It's just these three things mashed together, right? Um, I think that's the conventional wisdom. I don't personally agree with that, but I want to hear your response to the question of, can AI be creative, and why is that, or is that not the case?
Well, in a way, I think you're right, but at the same time,
No, again, this is not me.
no,
This is
no, no,
not
no, no.
by
Or
me.
you're like, no,
I'm
but
presenting this
so the
straw man.
question is,
Yes.
can humans be creative? I think that is more my, like,
Go on.
are we
Go on.
kind of in an illusion that kind of what we are doing is not also just cramming concepts together on different
Totally
levels
agree.
of kind of like
Yes.
from surface level to deeper meanings? So, and that's so I believe so. For me, creativity is really just a search. So everybody,
Mhm.
based on what they know, what they kind of have learned, when they have to solve a problem, be it like a visual one or another problem, they
Mhm.
are looking for solutions, right? So kind of,
Mhm.
and then in that process, you go through permutations of what you know and how you can stick it together in different ways. Or okay, so I've heard about, like, I read this book here and I like that little idea here, but what if I combine it with that other thing? And
Mhm.
I do not believe that we ever really come up with something, a unique new building block for that. So you can only
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
operate on everything you know. And the more you know, the more material you have to play with. And of course, uh, you have different people have different ways of, let's say, kind of splitting up something into its building blocks again, right? You see, well, I don't know,
Mhm.
okay, let's stay with the book. You see the book and then you have the characters and you recognize the storyline. In a way, yeah, it's almost really you take everything, then there's a certain style of writing,
Mhm.
and then you kind of take a certain part of it. Let's say, oh yeah, I liked kind of whatever that, the way the story developed, but I didn't like that it was set in a fantasy world. I want this to be a
Right.
crime story or something like that. and and
Right.
and but in the end, kind of like, also what you get out is definitely seen as a creative product, but I don't think you really have invented something fundamentally new, right? You are working from
Mhm.
a lot of atoms, which knowledge atoms.
Mhm.
And I believe
Mhm.
an AI can be creative in the same way, and it can even be more thorough in the sense that it knows already much more than we, every single human knows what already exists and what kind of works. So typically when we think we have an original idea, we usually just haven't searched hard enough to figure out that
Huh.
actually it has happened. Like somebody had already had that, or we were just looking in the wrong corner. So yeah, I had this idea, but okay, I'm just looking in whatever comedy, but reality, somebody had exactly that concept in I don't know, as a in a song. And because
Right.
we are limited to kind of searching only kind of for that current problem in certain areas, and AI is much more fluid and flexible in realizing that, oh, but kind of this, I don't know, this progression of suspension has already been done here. And so if I want to create something original, I rather vary it, or I have to use a
Hmm.
similar, like place it in a different setting. And so I believe, yeah, AI can be creative. Problem is, yes, it is. Is it now? Uh, Problem is that it goes for the most probable stuff usually, kind of,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's also the fault of the way these powerful models are being kind of
Hmm.
given to us, because most
Hmm.
of these big models are not in our control. We have to use a certain interface to use them. Prompting is very powerful, of course, and allows you to escape that, but most people
Hmm.
kind of go with the default, we would say. And the
Hmm.
default
Well, and
gives
that's
you
probably
also the mean, the and that gives you then the
right.
impression
Right.
that is all there is, and that it's very quickly getting
It's
boring.
it's playing it safe.
Yeah,
It's
it's
playing it
playing
safe.
it
It's commercial,
safe,
and
and sometimes it's
that's
get
the
even
same problem
forced to
all
play it
artists
safe.
have, right? Just as real human artists at times might be nudged to play it safe,
Oh
right?
yes.
They're like, let's say that they sold a few paintings and those were well received.
Make
They
more.
might be less likely to go a whole different tack and be daring and take chances. Like, well, that might cause a hit to their legacy, so they go play it safe. And just if I can, I love the way you broke down that creativity dynamic. I think I my personal take on this is that's how creativity has always worked, right? We're always like no one's creative in a vacuum.
No.
We all have influences and people are borrowing and stealing from things that came before them and kind of mushing them together and using them in surprising and yes, creative ways. But it's all about taking these different knowledge atoms, as you say, and playing with them. I think I could be butchering this. I think Einstein once described creativity as combinatorial play,
Hmm.
the idea of
Exactly. No, that's
combining.
exactly what I
Yeah.
mean. Yeah. So
And
yeah.
that's what you're doing with Botto. Last couple of questions here. What advice do you give to artists who are beginning to play with AI and who are curious about using AI to unlock additional creative possibilities?
Oh, that's tough. No, because of course, any advice that I give can pretty much only be applied to me. Like, I'm lucky that I got in so early. Nowadays, the starting conditions are very, very different, right? So now you are in
Mm,
this world where you are surrounded by other people who have the same tools and kind of trying to get their work out there. I mean, I think the like at first, I guess you have to realize, why is it that you want to make art? Is it something to make
mm,
money? Usually not a good idea. There are better jobs to than being an
mm,
artist. The probability that you will make it as an artist and to get to a stage where you get recognized, and then to the stage where you actually can make a living from this, is getting smaller and smaller, I would say. But of course, I mean, some people, like, if that's what you want, then you have to go for it. Um, is it, or yeah, and then the question is, you want to make art that kind of sells, or you want to make art because you have a mission or a message, or you want to art, like what are the reasons to do this at all? And but then things change so quickly. But the one thing that probably never changes is that opportunities usually come from other people. So even in
mhm,
AI times, so the
mhm.
most kind of useful skill one can still have, I guess, is being able to talk to people and get, no,
Sure.
really, and being actually, and then, like, a big benefit is being in a place where you actually have a chance to meet them. So
Hmm.
with the internet, it has changed, and now of course people become whatever internet influencers and become successful that way. So maybe that is actually the better way if you are not living in New York or I don't know,
Hmm.
London, whatever, some big hub. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I would say, I mean, of course, then I would say try to go beyond what the default gives you. Try to kind of figure out how you can break it, or even how you can run something that is within your own control. I think that is a very,
Hmm.
like, if I would become an artist these days, I would not try to only rely on software that is not in your control, because eventually that will be turned off, or they will kind of
Hmm.
raise the prices or
Sure.
change the algorithm, and something whatever. If you were successfully finding a certain style that people recognize you for, and then suddenly they change the model, then you're, well, you are kind of dude. So
Right.
uh,
Right.
so I would always try to kind of get as much control over whatever you're doing as possible. But again, things are changing, and but yeah, I do not really have good advice. I would probably also kind of these days look for learning an actual craft, do something with your hands,
Hmm.
because that's what's
Yeah, I
going to
agree.
happen now. Everybody is producing digitally, everybody has the same tools. There are certain things that were very hard to do a while ago, and now it's becoming extremely cheap and extremely fast to
Yep.
do, and that's usually not something where you want to be in or want to rely on. So
Hmm.
try to learn
Smart.
something that is still hard to do and that people want. And it could
Yes.
be wood carving, I don't know, it could be
Yeah,
painting,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because even though artists are super afraid right now to kind of like that their jobs get stolen and their ideas get stolen, our way of seeing will evolve, and we will learn to recognize again the difference between something that is truly handmade and something that is artificially made. I believe that even if AI gets better and better, we will continuously upgrade our own software in our heads to recognize it. And well, at some point, there will be a big movement of people who, or like that already exists, who hate the AI stuff and want the analog. So maybe it's
Right,
not a
right.
bad idea to still be able to do that. I mean, unfortunately, I can't paint, I can't do this, so I have to use the AI, but maybe
Think
others.
you've done okay. Last question for you. It's a two-parter. What do you see as a future for Botto? How do you see it evolving down the road? What are some things you hope it will do in the future that's different from today? And then secondly, tell us about your predictions for AI art in the future. Let's say 1 year from now, 5 years from now, hell, 10 years from now. What are some things we might be seeing in society? How could things look differently in the art world? But let's start with
Okay.
Botto.
Well, one thing that I would like Botto to gain is the ability to alter itself. So, kind of in the
Mm,
sense that right now I am following whatever on Twitter on scientists, and see, oh, there's a new model out there and that is able
hmm.
to do this. Oh, here's the link to GitHub. Oh, this is how I install it, and now I run it. All these things can be automated too. So at the moment, this is what I do then, right? Once in every few months, a new model is added.
Hmm.
But theoretically, Botto could follow kind of the latest development itself and then
Hmm.
upgrade its code. And of course,
Hmm.
that could then also extend beyond picture models into other areas. So first of all, Botto should be able to upgrade itself. The other thing is
Hmm.
Botto should expand its repertoire. So I
Sure.
think I could imagine Botto could write a song, or
Hmm.
maybe even do, I don't know, that's always a tricky thing, but I could see that Botto does a collaboration with a fashion brand or like some kind of a like where it
Interesting.
fits. I don't know. I mean, it's dangerous because I really see Botto as a fine artist, and then there is always kind of this tricky kind of area where you might get too commercial, but occasionally something like whatever the Botto Adidas shoe, or I don't
Yeah.
know, Nike, or who
You're
else
you're,
I
you're
forgot.
minting money as you speak. This is it
But
sounds
yeah,
lucrative.
so that would be something. Okay, where's art going? Oh God, it's like trying to predict the weather in the next month. So okay, uh, obviously what we are seeing now is that from the still image we have already entered the moving image phase. So now we are at, what
Mm-hmm.
is it, like 2 or 3 seconds of very appealing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that will of course get longer and increase in quality. So very
Yep.
soon we have, I mean, we have already these beginnings of kind of an entire film episode or something purely generated from prompts. And
Right. Right.
so, with that coming, of course, the thing that is not fully solved still is the whole idea of storytelling itself. So, I mean, yes, it can now go there, but I think this still needs some kind of a breakthrough that the machine, either it needs bigger models or a very specialized model, but
Mm-hmm.
a model that can understand how stories really work is kind of the holy grail, I would think. And the other thing is a model that truly has understood humor. That is, so at the
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
these models are not funny. I mean, they are
They're
inadvertently
not funny.
funny, but they do not have gotten us as humans.
Yeah.
And I think once these two things are there, then AI can go anywhere, because that's pretty much all we want. We want
Stories
interesting
and
stories to be told,
laughs.
and we want to have a
Yes.
laugh. So, and
I love
if a
it.
machine can give us that, then yeah, we just like, well, the question is, what are we doing then, right? So of course it also still has to kind of pay
We'll
for our
be on the
living.
beach with we'll be on the beach enjoying
Yeah,
the
well, for some
stories
people that
that
might be enough, but I don't know. I want
right.
challenges. So I mean, the
Of
challenges will
course.
probably never end, but yeah, the challenges will of course now come for AI truly really will replace certain creative jobs or make them
Yeah.
like, I mean, there won't be as many people required as there was before if the intern can do the ad campaign by so,
Yep.
and this will of course, so yeah, but the question is how to deal with this. I mean, well, my thing is always, now that AI can earn us money, it should kind of be, well, I hate that, but yeah, it should pay for us. So kind of
Mm-hmm.
the AI companies should pay kind of a big community tax, and everybody gets universal income from that. Because really, I mean, that's what currently happens. So they put a price tag on everything, and you have to pay here for this AI and that. And if you
Mm-hmm.
add it up, you pay a few hundred months euros a month for your dollars just for AI
Mm-hmm.
services. And so somebody's earning a lot of money with that. So maybe give back, because replacing all these jobs or make it, yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know. It's, yeah.
Well, Mario. Until then, until we get to that point, we will. Will keep appreciating Botto. Congrats on what you have built. Fascinating stuff. Again, I love talking to you. We could talk for hours longer about your thoughts on art and the meaning of art and creativity and the distinction between humans and machines and how it's perhaps not as distinct as we think. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much again. Congrats to what you built.
Thank you, Jeff.
So there you have it. Thanks again to Mario. Thank you to Botto. And thank you to the human listeners. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to AI Curious wherever you get your podcast, rate it 5 stars, and share it with a friend or an enemy or an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, or your favorite robot artist. Thanks again. See you next time.